The Fashion Empire Murder. The Last Confession. 3 days before Alessandro Valentini's death, he told his lawyer these exact words: "If I don't survive this weekend, remove my son from my will completely." The lawyer thought it was a joke, but when the phone rang at Alessandro's penthouse on Sunday morning, everything changed. In a $40 million apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, one of fashion's most legendary names had closed his eyes to life. Through the window, Central Park's snowy landscape was visible. Italian artist masterpieces hung on marble floors. Every corner reflected Alessandro's 50 years of refined taste. But in the bedroom, beneath cashmere blankets, the 78-year-old designer's body had grown cold. His eyes were open, his face contorted. Death had given him an ending that didn't suit him at all. David Harrington had assembled his team in the conference room after the early morning phone call. He placed Alessandro Valentini's photograph in the center of the table, a portrait of a man who came to New York from Milano as a poor tailor, then became one of the world's wealthiest fashion magnates. With white hair and sharp features, he still looked imposing. "This isn't just another natural death case," David said, turning to his team. Sam Reeves, Marcus Chen, Elena Cortez and Jake Morrison sat in the room. Each felt the tension in David's voice. "NYPD called me at 06:30 this morning. Alessandro Valentini was found dead yesterday morning. Initial report says heart attack, but the details at the scene, they're disturbing." Sam Reeves opened his notebook. "What details?" "Vomit traces, congested eyelids, abnormal skin color, convulsions," David said. When the housekeeper found the body, Alessandro's face showed signs of agony. Heart attacks are typically quick and relatively quiet, but this looked painful. Elena was reading Alessandro's life story on her laptop screen. She adjusted her glasses and began speaking. Alessandro Valentini, born in Milano, 1948, moved to New York in 1972, opened his first boutique in 1974, rose to stardom in the fashion world during the 1980s. Valentini Group is now worth $2.1 billion. CEO is his son Luca Valentini, 42 years old. Alessandro's wife died of cancer in 2015. And, Elena paused, examining the screen more closely. "Interesting. 3 days ago, on Thursday, he had a private meeting with his lawyer. Subject, will modification." David leaned forward. "The lawyer spoke with me. Alessandro told him something very specific. If I die this weekend, don't think it's a coincidence, and remove my son from my will completely." Everyone in the room turned their heads. Marcus Chen put his pen down on the table. "That's a very specific premonition for a 78-year-old man. Either he's paranoid, or he's genuinely under threat. Or he knows both," added Jake Morrison, crossing his arms over his chest. The former Detroit cop, with his 30 years of experience, always thought practically. "I worked the streets for years. When people sense they're going to die, they're usually right. Survival instinct." David wrote Alessandro's final 72 hours on the whiteboard in a timeline. Thursday, January 16th, 2 p.m. Meeting with lawyer Richard Bergman. Alessandro gives instruction for will modification. He's completely removing his son Luca from the will, donating his entire fortune to an arts foundation. Sam whistled. $2.1 billion. Luca gets nothing. "Exactly," David said. Friday, January 17th, evening. Alessandro has a quiet dinner at his Upper East Side penthouse. With him is his young girlfriend Scarlett Morrison, 25 years old, professional model. The couple stays overnight at the penthouse together. Saturday, January 18th, 9 a.m. Scarlett returns home. Alessandro is left alone. Sunday, January 19th, 8 a.m. When housekeeper Maria Rodriguez arrives, she finds Alessandro dead in the bedroom. Elena noticed a detail. "The housekeeper doesn't normally come on weekends. Why did she go that weekend?" "Because Alessandro gave her special instructions," David said. "You must come Sunday morning," he told her, as if he wanted someone to find him. A heavy silence fell over the room for a few seconds. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Was Alessandro planning his own death, or did he know someone was going to kill him? Marcus spoke, looking at his notes. The will modification is critical. Why would a father completely disinherit his son? 3 possibilities. First, he fears his son. Second, he doesn't trust him. Third, he knows his son will kill him, and this is his way of taking revenge. Or, Elena added, he's under the influence of his young girlfriend Scarlett. Luca might have introduced Scarlett to his father after his mother died. An old man falls in love with a young woman, loses his judgment, alienates his family. Classic scenario. Jake laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. I've seen 100 versions of this in Detroit. Old rich man, young woman, family drama. Someone ends up dead, usually the old man. Sam brought them back on topic. The toxicology report will arrive this afternoon. I'm going to the scene now to do my own examination. If this is a murder, the evidence should still be there. David stood up. All right, Sam, you go to the scene. Elena, you go to Valentini Group and talk to Luca. Marcus, find Alessandro's former business partner, Giancarlo Rossi. Interview him. Jake, you find Scarlett Morrison. Observe her. I'll speak with lawyer Bergman again, learn the details of the will. The team dispersed. Everyone focused on their task. But they were all thinking the same question. Was Alessandro Valentini really murdered? And if so, who was the killer? Luca's true face. When Elena Cortez entered Valentini Group's glamorous Manhattan office building at 10:30 a.m., she felt the cold aesthetic of the fashion world. In the lobby, a massive crystal chandelier, marble floors, perfectly dressed assistants at every corner. The walls were covered with black and white fashion photographs, famous models wearing Alessandro Valentini designs. This was an empire. And now the new king of this empire sat in a corner office on the 42nd floor. The receptionist directed Elena upstairs. Riding up in the elevator, Elena ran scenarios through her mind. How would Luca react? Would he play the grieving son, or remain the cold CEO? When the elevator doors opened, the view before her was impressive. The entire floor was open concept, but Luca's office was entirely glass-walled, in the corner, overlooking Manhattan. Inside, Alessandro's son sat at his desk talking on the phone, just 48 hours after his father's death. As Elena approached, she heard Luca's voice. No, the launch won't be postponed. My father would have wanted to see this collection. We're continuing with New York Fashion Week. Yes, I'm sorry too, but business means life. He hung up and turned to Elena. Luca Valentini, unlike his father, had the appearance of a modern CEO. Slim-fit Armani suit, perfectly shaved face, dark brown hair slicked back with gel. His face wore a professional expression of grief, but Elena, with the intuition gained from years of interviewing people, noticed this grief was superficial. Ms. Cortez, Luca said, extending his hand. They shook. Luca's hand was cold, dry. Another journalist wanting to tell my father's story. How original. Elena took out her notebook, didn't smile. I don't just tell stories, Mr. Valentini. I find the truth. And there's a lot that's strange about your father's death. A momentary tension appeared in Luca's eyes, then disappeared. He walked to the window, looking out over Manhattan's rooftops. My father was 78 years old, Ms. Cortez. His heart was tired. His doctors had been warning him for years. This was inevitable, Elena repeated. Interesting choice of words, as if you were expecting it. Luca turned, fixing his sharp gaze on Elena. What are you implying? Nothing. Just asking, why did your father completely remove you from his will 3 days ago? The room turned ice cold. Luca's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. How do you know about that? That information is confidential. I have sources, Elena interrupted. Please answer. Why did your father leave a $2.1 billion fortune not to you, but to an arts foundation? Luca took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. He returned to his desk, sat down. As my father aged, he weakened mentally. He became paranoid. He started not trusting the people around him, especially because of that woman. Scarlett Morrison. Yes, Luca said, spitting out the name like poison. That woman turned my father's head. She whispered nonsense like, "Your son is using you, your son wants to destroy the company, your son doesn't love you." And my father, with a sick mind, made insane decisions. Elena took notes. "So you're blaming Scarlett?" "I'm not blaming her," Luca said, though the hatred in his voice was clear. "I'm stating facts. Why would a 25-year-old model be with a 78-year-old billionaire, Ms. Cortez? For love? Or for a $2 billion will? And where were you Saturday night between 6 p.m. and midnight?" Luca didn't hesitate. "I was at our house in the Hamptons, with my wife Laura and our 2 children. We went there Saturday afternoon, stayed until Sunday evening." "You can ask them." "We will," Elena said. But something nagged at her. Luca was too prepared, as if he'd been expecting this question. "One more question. When was your last conversation with your father?" Luca hesitated. For the first time, his mask slipped. "Thursday. After the lawyer meeting, he called me. He said, 'I'm removing you from my will.' He said, 'You'll destroy the company. I won't allow it.' And I said terrible things to him. We argued. He hung up, and we never spoke again." "What did you say to him?" Elena prepared her pen. Luca closed his eyes, as if trying to erase the memory. "I said, 'I wish you'd died sooner.' I said, 'Your time has passed. This is my empire now.' And I said, 'I'll never forgive you.'" Elena stopped her pen. This wasn't just a father-son argument. This was a confession of deep hatred. "Do you regret it?" Elena asked quietly. Luca opened his eyes, and what Elena saw there frightened her. There was no regret, only emptiness. "I honestly don't know, Miss Cortez. Sometimes I think, maybe my father was right. Maybe I really became a monster. But then I ask myself, who created this monster? The man who belittled me for 50 years, who told me I was never good enough, who ignored all my achievements." Elena closed her notebook. There was nothing more to learn here, but the darkness she saw in Luca's eyes disturbed her. Was this man capable of killing his father? Yes, Elena thought. Absolutely yes. Sam's discovery. At the same time, at the Upper East Side penthouse, Sam Reeves was examining the scene. NYPD's crime scene team had finished their work, but it wasn't enough for Sam's own analysis yet. The penthouse was incredible. 4,300 square feet, 13-foot ceilings, Central Park views from every window, Italian marble floors, Murano glass chandeliers, Caravaggio, Modigliani, Picasso works on the walls. This wasn't a home, this was a museum. Sam put on white latex gloves and moved to the bedroom. This was where Alessandro had taken his last breath. King-size bed, silk sheets, cashmere blankets. But next to the bed was a disturbing scene. Vomit traces, bloodstains, epistaxis, nosebleed, and a water glass fallen to the floor. Sam carefully examined the glass. There were water residues inside. She immediately took a liquid sample, put it in a test tube. Then she took fiber samples from the bed sheets, saliva swabs from the pillow, and hair samples from the bathroom sink. She moved to the living room. This was less messy. But what caught Sam's attention was in the kitchen. The kitchen was modern and complete enough for a professional chef to work in. Sam opened the refrigerator. Inside were organic vegetables, fresh fruits, premium meats. Then she checked the trash can. Inside were a few empty bottles, used plates, and something interesting, a tea box. Empty. Sam picked up the box, examined it. Artisan herbal tea. Aconitum blend. Aconitum. Sam's heart raced. This wasn't tea. This was poison. She immediately pulled out her phone, called David. "David, you need to come here right away. I found something." 15 minutes later, when David arrived at the penthouse, Sam was waiting for him in the kitchen. In her hand was a transparent evidence bag with the tea box inside. "What's this?" David asked. "Aconitum," Sam said. "Also known as monk's hood or wolfsbane. an extremely deadly plant. When the roots are ground and made into tea, just a few milligrams can cause cardiac arrest. Symptoms closely resemble a heart attack: chest pain, shortness of breath, vomiting, cardiac arrest. But unlike a real heart attack, it leaves alkaloid traces in toxicology tests. David carefully examined the box. Where do you find something like this? From the internet, the dark web, some herbal medicine sites, or if you harvest it directly from nature. Aconitum plants grow in Europe and Asia. Someone knowledgeable would know how to process it. Would Alessandro use such an herbal remedy? Sam shook her head. No, I checked his medical records. Alessandro believed in traditional medicine. He had no interest in herbal teas, homeopathy, anything like that. Someone planted this tea here, David thought. Saturday. Scarlett left Saturday morning. Alessandro was alone that day, but someone must have entered the penthouse. Are there security recordings? Sam opened her laptop. NYPD already checked. Saturday at 3:30 p.m. The system went offline. For exactly 2 hours, no cameras were working. It came back online at 5:30 p.m. Very convenient malfunction, David said in a cold voice. Someone must have helped from the inside. Someone with knowledge to disable the security system, or Alessandro himself disabled it, Sam said. Maybe he was expecting someone he trusted. David walked around the penthouse. He examined every corner, memorized every detail, and then, at the dining table, he noticed something. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 sets of silverware. Alessandro hadn't been alone Saturday evening. He'd had dinner with someone. Sam, David said, pointing to the table. 2 people ate here. But when the housekeeper arrived Sunday morning, she found Alessandro alone. So someone was here Saturday evening, ate with him, and then poisoned him. Sam approached, photographed the plates. We'll get fingerprints, DNA samples. If the killer ate here, they left traces. David pulled out his phone, called Marcus. Marcus, how's your interview with Giancarlo Rossi going? From the other end of the phone came Marcus's voice. David, I'm learning very interesting things here. When I talked to Giancarlo, the man cried. Real tears. But the things he's saying, disturbing. Alessandro and Luca's relationship has been toxic for years. Giancarlo describes the depth of Luca's hatred for his father. And he said something else. Luca always used to say, when my father dies, I'll be free. David and Sam exchanged glances. The puzzle pieces were starting to come together. Jake's street instinct. Jake Morrison sat in his car outside a model agency in Soho, waiting for Scarlett Morrison. David had told him to observe her, and Jake was doing exactly that. 30 years of street experience had taught him one thing. People show their true faces when they're under stress. At 2 p.m., Scarlett came out of the building. Long blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, black trench coat. She walked down the street with a model's gait, but Jake noticed the trembling in her hands. Scarlett was terrified. Jake got out of the car, started following her. Scarlett stopped in front of a cafe, pulled out her phone, called someone. Jake got close enough to hear the conversation. No, I haven't talked to the police yet, Scarlett was saying, her voice trembling. But there's this David Harrington guy. He's investigating. Yes, that detective. What are we going to do? If they find out the truth? No, listen. I loved Alessandro. This wasn't my fault. Jake pretended to sit in the cafe, ears perked. What did Luca say? Scarlett asked. Jake's ears pricked up. Luca. Okay, I won't tell him. But I'm scared. Alessandro had given me something. A USB. He said, if something happens to me, give this to the police. Yes, I still have it. What should I do with it? The phone call ended. Scarlett entered the cafe, ordered a coffee. Her hands were still shaking. Jake immediately called David. Boss, we've got something big. Scarlett just talked to someone on the phone. She mentioned Luca, and she said Alessandro gave her a USB. There's something on it. David's voice was sharp. Don't lose Scarlett. Keep watching her until I get there. Jake hung up and continued watching Scarlett. The young woman drank her coffee, then opened her phone again. This time she didn't call anyone. She went on Instagram, posted a photo, an old selfie with Alessandro. Caption, "I will love you forever, amor mio." Jake shook his head. Either Scarlett was genuinely grieving, or she was giving a very good performance. An hour later, when David and Elena arrived in front of the cafe, Jake greeted them. "She's inside, corner table. For the last hour, she's gone to the bathroom 3 times, wiped her eyes each time. Either she's crying or faking tears. Time to approach her," David said. The 3 of them entered the cafe together. When Scarlett saw them, she flinched. She took off her sunglasses, revealing red, swollen eyes underneath. You're that detective, aren't you?" "David Harrington." David sat down. "Yes, and we need to talk to you, Miss Morrison." Scarlett's lips trembled. I didn't kill Alessandro. I swear, I loved him." "We know that," Elena said in a soft voice. "But you need to help us. Alessandro gave you a USB, didn't he?" Scarlett's face went white. "How do you know?" "Doesn't matter," David said. "You have to give us that USB. If you really loved Alessandro, help us find his killer." Scarlett's eyes filled with tears. She opened her purse, shakily pulled out a small USB. "Here it is. Alessandro gave this to me Saturday morning before I left. He said, 'Scarlett, if something happens to me, give this to the police. There's truth in it. But be careful, this USB could put you in danger too.'" David took the USB. "Do you know what's on it?" "No," Scarlett said. "I didn't open it. I was scared. But Alessandro said something else. Luca is a danger to me. But he's also a puppet's toy. The real danger is the puppet master." Elena took notes. "Puppet master? Who could he have meant?" Scarlett shook her head. "I don't know. But Alessandro was very paranoid in his last days. He'd say, 'They're watching me.' He'd say, 'There's a traitor inside the company.' When I asked who, he wouldn't answer. He just said, 'You're the only one I can trust.'" David stood up. "Miss Morrison, we'll have more questions. But for now, thank you for this USB. And be careful. If Alessandro was right, you're in danger too." Scarlett nodded, the fear in her eyes deepening even more. The truth on the USB. When Sam Reeves plugged the USB into her computer at the office, the evidence it contained was shocking. Inside were hundreds of files, financial reports, emails, encrypted documents, and most importantly, audio recordings. David, Marcus, Elena, and Jake gathered around Sam. Sam opened the first file. "Offshore accounts," Sam said, pointing at the screen. "Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Panama, total $50 million. And all in Luca Valentini's name." Marcus leaned forward. "Did Alessandro know his son was stealing from the company?" "He didn't just know," Sam said, opening more files. "He documented it. Here are fake invoices, phantom consultants, phantom projects. Luca has been systematically transferring money from the company for the last 5 years." Elena whistled. $50 million. This isn't just petty theft. This is organized embezzlement. "And that's why Alessandro removed him from the will," David said. "He learned his son was a thief and decided to take revenge." Jake noticed another folder. "What's that recordings file?" Sam clicked. Inside were 12 audio files. As she played the first one, everyone in the room held their breath. Alessandro's voice echoed. "Giancarlo, I thought I could trust you, but now I've learned you're also collaborating with Luca. How can you betray me like this? Doesn't our 40-year friendship mean anything?" Then Giancarlo's voice. "Alessandro, please understand. Luca left me no choice. If your plan goes through, the company goes to the foundation and I'll be unemployed. My 40 years of work will go down the drain. I don't want to be on the street at retirement age." "Alessandro, so you're selling me out for money? Unbelievable." "Giancarlo, this isn't just about money, Alessandro. Luca is right. You've aged. You can't manage the company properly. You don't understand the modern world. The time has come, Alessandro." "The time? You mean it's time for me to die?" Silence. Then Giancarlo. I didn't say that, Alessandro. But Luca did, didn't he? He said, my father must die, and you agreed. The recording cut off there. Everyone in the room was shocked. Marcus was the first to speak. This is evidence of conspiracy. Giancarlo and Luca are working together. They're planning to eliminate Alessandro. Sam continued playing the next recordings. Each presented more evidence. Phone calls between Luca and Giancarlo, secret meetings, planning. The last recording was the worst. Luca's voice, Giancarlo, the time has come. My father changed the will. If we don't act fast, we'll lose everything. Saturday you go to the penthouse. Make a visit, the excuse, have dinner. And in the tea, you know what to put. Giancarlo, Luca, I'm not a killer. I can't do this. Luca, you can. Because either you do this or I give the police documents about your embezzlement from company records. You'll rot in prison. Your choice. Giancarlo, after a long silence, how much will you pay? Luca, $10 million. Offshore account. Nobody will know. Giancarlo, okay, I'll do it Saturday. The recording ended. Nobody in the room spoke. Everyone was in shock. David was the first to recover. This is evidence of conspiracy and first-degree murder. Luca made the plan. Giancarlo executed it. We need to arrest them both. Marcus nodded. But we need to be careful. Will these recordings be admissible in court? He might have recorded without Alessandro's permission. Doesn't matter, Sam said. These recordings point us in the right direction. Now we need to find physical evidence. When the toxicology report comes in, if aconitine is detected and we find Giancarlo's fingerprints at the penthouse, our case is solid. Elena stood up. We need to act immediately. If Luca and Giancarlo suspect we're onto them, they could flee the country. David called NYPD. I want arrest warrants. Luca Valentini and Giancarlo Rossi. Charges of murder and conspiracy. Finale, the confrontation. That night at 9 p.m., David and his team, along with NYPD detectives, came to the Valentini Group office. The building was lit up because Luca was still working. When they went up to the 42nd floor, they found him in the corner office, alone, drinking a glass of whiskey while looking out at the Manhattan skyline. When David opened the door, Luca turned. There was a slight smile on his face. I predicted you'd come, he said. You found Alessandro's USB, didn't you? Yes, David said in a cold voice. We heard everything. The conspiracy with Giancarlo, the embezzlement, the plans, all of it. Luca's smile didn't fade. Those recordings aren't valid in court. They were made without the party's knowledge. Maybe, Marcus said, stepping forward. But the toxicology report came in. Aconitine was detected in Alessandro's blood. Giancarlo's fingerprints are at the penthouse, on the dining table, on the glass, on the door handle. And Giancarlo confessed to everything half an hour ago. Luca's smile finally dropped. What? Giancarlo talked, David said. He told us how you begged him, how he had to do this to save the company, how you blackmailed him, and how he went to the penthouse Saturday, had dinner with Alessandro, and put aconitine in his tea. He confessed everything. He's in custody right now. Luca's color drained. He slowly put his glass on the table. He sold me out. No, Marcus said. You sold him out. You used a 40-year friend to kill your own father. Giancarlo just acted on survival instinct. Luca sat down, brought his hands to his face. There was silence for a few seconds. Then his hands came down, and Luca wiped the tears from his eyes. My father never loved me, he said quietly. For 50 years I lived in his shadow. Nothing I did was good enough. I graduated from Harvard. He said Stanford was better. As CEO, I doubled the company. He said we lost the old quality. I got married, had children. He said your family made you soft. Never, not once did he say, I'm proud of you, son. Marcus took notes. Classic narcissistic personality disorder symptoms. Constant lack of validation from a parent. Deep sense of worthlessness. Eventually reactive rage. And then Luca continued. He started being with that woman. Scarlett, 25 years old, a model, younger than me. He humiliated me. The entire fashion world was gossiping. They said Alessandro Valentini is an old fool, and I was his son. They were laughing at me too. Elena was quietly taking notes. But the worst, Luca said, his voice beginning to rise, was the will. He removed me from the inheritance. My 50 years of service meant nothing. $2.1 billion was going to an arts foundation. I got nothing. This was the final insult. David leaned forward. And you decided to take revenge? Luca locked eyes with David. I only took what was rightfully mine. That company is mine. I created it. I grew it. My father was just a name. The real work was mine. And this gives you the right to commit murder? Marcus asked. Luca laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. Right? Dr. Chen, life isn't about rights. It's about power. My father showed me his power by removing me from the will. I showed him mine. David signaled the NYPD detectives. Luca Valentini, you're under arrest for the murder of Alessandro Valentini and premeditated murder. You have the right to remain silent. You can arrest me, Luca interrupted, standing up. But know this, my father wasn't a saint. For 50 years he used people, manipulated them, consumed them. I just did what he taught me. The handcuffs were put on. As Luca was led out of the office, he looked one last time at the Manhattan skyline. His empire was no longer his. Epilogue. The end of the story. A week later, David sat in his office with his team. The case was closed. Luca Valentini and Giancarlo Rossi had been found guilty of first-degree murder. Both would receive life sentences. Alessandra's will has been executed, Elena said, reading from her laptop. $2.1 billion has been transferred to the Valentini Arts Foundation. The foundation will provide scholarships to the next generation of fashion designers, open art schools. Alessandra's legacy will live on this way. Sam, gathering up the toxicology reports, added, the aconitine case is now closed and solved. A rare poison, but if someone has motive and opportunity, it's not hard to find. Marcus, closing his notes, added, this case reminded me of something. The deepest murders are born from the deepest wounds. Luca died as a son from lack of love, and then was born as a killer. If Alessandro had given him love for 50 years, maybe he'd still be alive today. Jake sipped his coffee. I worked Detroit streets for 30 years, saw hundreds of murders. But family murders are always the most painful, because blood ties can also be the deepest bonds of hatred. David nodded. What happened to Scarlett? Alessandro left her $5 million. Elena said, in a secret will. Luca didn't know. Scarlett is now opening a charity with that money for women who've suffered domestic violence. She said, Alessandro gave me a second life. Now I'll give life to others. David smiled. At least one happy ending. One question, Sam said. Why did Luca choose Giancarlo? Why not hire a professional killer? Marcus answered. Because Giancarlo was Alessandro's closest friend. He could enter and exit the penthouse, wouldn't raise suspicion, and Luca had dirty secrets to blackmail him with. Giancarlo became the perfect tool, and ultimately a scapegoat. Did Giancarlo get a reduced sentence? Jake asked. Yes, David said, for cooperating. He'll get 15 years instead of 20, but at 69 years old, when he gets out, he'll be 84, practically life. The team sat in silence for a while. Every case taught something. This case had shown the dark side of family. I wonder what Alessandro thought as he was dying, Elena murmured. Did he know his son killed him? Marcus thought. Maybe he knew. Maybe with his last breath he said, I was right. But it was too late. David stood up, looked out the window at the New York skyline. Some people die rich, some die famous, but Alessandro Valentini died abandoned. All his money, all his fame, couldn't save him, because he'd lost the most important thing, his family. The team absorbed these words, and then a file for a new case arrived. Life went on, crimes continued, and David Harrington's team would continue bringing justice. But the Fashion Empire murder case would remain in all their memories, because this wasn't just a murder. This was a warning. Money can't save you, fame can't protect you, but love can change everything, and the absence of love can destroy everything. The end.